Hello, everyone. This is Thomas Pepin NHL Talk. I'm Thomas Pepin, and let's talk about the NHL. So, first, some uh, things to cover just about the stream. So, sorry for one that I'm about 30 minutes late today. Had something come up, and on that note, the um, sorry, one sec. It's related to some housekeeping. So I'm going to be um, traveling for uh, a few days. So, what are the dates? Give me one sec. So, everything should go back to normal on Tuesday, October 25. Until that point, um, I don't know. So today is the last stream I can do at guaranteed time. Well, I mean, 30 minutes late, sorry, but where things are consistent. The next 6 days that'll be including tomorrow. Um, I don't know my timing. My intention is to be able to stream every day. Um, but I have absolutely no idea the timing. So, and I probably won't know until just before. So, very important if you're interested in tuning in to subscribe and enable notifications. This way, you know when I stream. It very well could be super early in the morning, very well could be in the evening. So, I have absolutely no idea. And then after this time away, things should go back to normal for the foreseeable future, or at least for a few months. So, anyways, so just to get that out of the way, yeah, and then the plan, of course, is to continue on the series that I'm on at the moment, and yeah. Um, Basically, I'll keep you posted on what's going on as the days go by, but not looking like there's anything guaranteed in terms of timing at this moment. And hopefully things are more clear, but uh, yeah, I don't know at the moment the details. So, anyways, so we are on to part 4 of the 8-part series, taking a look at each team's cap management. And so this is the second part for the Central Division. And in this part, we're going to take a look at the Dallas Stars, Nashville Predators, St. Louis Blues, and Colorado Avalanche. And yeah, let's get started. So, just a second to pull things up. All right, so Dallas Stars are spending essentially right up to the cap. 82.358 million is what they're at. 141,000. So not essentially zero cap space, which funny on that note, season opening rosters, I believe I read somewhere that Vancouver was exactly on the mark. Maybe something I should have commented on previously, but that was pretty cool. So you're actually getting full value on your cap space. Now, of course, that changes with injuries and things like that over the span of the year, but maybe something that teams should be visiting because, like take into consideration that, like, let's say, for example, you have $200,000 of cap space. Well, that $200,000 you're missing in potential value of performance. Now, what that equals, so let's say $1 million contract player produces, let's say a forward produces 12 goals. So uh, you could essentially, like, let's say it's $100,000 cap space, $1 million player, 10 goals a season. You're missing on one goal of value that you could have had, uh, which could be the difference between, winning a game that's very important. So it's something, to be honest, I haven't thought of, uh, and I'm kind of commenting on the spot here. It's a really interesting thing to consider, um, the impact of getting your cap space perfect. Now, again, it's essentially impossible because contracts come and go, you make trades, waiver acquisitions, and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, in reality, it's not all that realistic. But that being said, it's there is missed value no matter how you look at it from not going right up to the cap. So, um, anyways, just something to comment on. Yeah, something interesting, I think. So, anyways, so Dallas, managed by Jim Nill. And again, just a reminder of the approach here. So we take a look at forwards, defense, and goalies separately. Take a look at the core players with the main contracts. Talk about the flexibility of the team with their cap, given those contracts. And then I give a final grade at the end of my opinion of their cap management. So, which more or less means the contracts currently on the books, their flexibility with those contracts. Um, and yeah, that's basically it. So, first contract here, Tyler Seguin. Depends on if you want to pronounce it the French way. Um, and on that note, I don't even know if his background is French, but nonetheless, I digress. 8-year contract, 5 years remaining. Last year, 49 points, 24 goals in 81 games, 50 points in 69 games, 80 points, 33 goals, 82 games, 78 points, 40 goals, 82 games. So kind of hovers around a point per game, except for the past couple years. And is a 20 plus goal scorer. He might actually be trending downwards. It's hard to say. Um, but previously a high end scoring talent. At this point, still a scorer. Uh, just not to like, I mean, 40 goals in one season is a lot. So, don't know if he's slipping. It's hard to say at this point, or if it's just a couple bad years. But so he was signed in 2018 after plenty of good years. Cap hit of, like I said, 9.85. So at the time would have been pricey. Uh, at this point, not outlandish, but the problem is that he's not producing to that value. So this is where, as I've mentioned previously, where players might have just gotten off career years, sign a contract where they're getting value at that time for their production, but then they age and the production slips, and then you're not getting the same value anymore. So that's where those contracts that put people into their high 30s at the end of the contract, you're never getting good value, and then you're just eating up cap space with not sufficient performance given the contract. So um, this could turn out being one of those. So the contract expires at a reasonable point. So he'll be 35 at the end. So conceivably, he's going to keep producing at similar rates, in which case the value is close, maybe slightly high, um, but not an unreasonable contract given his track record and given the time uh, when it was made. So, not a bad contract, not perfect. 8 years would have been great for him. Um, just maybe slightly high, but was it after his career year? Just one second to look. 2018. Yeah. So immediately after his career year, which skews things. So unfortunate in that regard, but it's close nonetheless to what he should be getting paid. So decent contract. Jamie Benn, 3 years remaining, 9.5 per 8-year contract. Last year, 46 points, 82 games, 35, 52, 39, 69, 53, 27 goals in 78. So exact same story as Seguin, where it could be that they're slipping, could be that the team hasn't been as great. But I don't think it's necessarily the team. They've had more or less the same roster. They got to the finals the one year there, and both of them didn't have the best of stats. So I feel like they're both slipping, but it's hard to say. In any case, contract was signed in 2016. So that's after a few good years. And again, after career year, 41 goals, 89 points in 82 games. So that's really tough. So bad timing on the contract signing. 9.5 per is, again, not unreasonable at good performance, but he's been down. So that's where I mean, the value's not good right now, but it's not a bad contract when it was made, given the track record of the player. So, a star that you would have wanted locked up long term. So, and I guess I should have said so. It expires when he's 36. So same story. Good contract when it was made, given the circumstances. Next up, Jason Robertson, 7.75 per 4 years. And I believe that one was just signed. Yeah, so just before the year. So last year, 79 points, 41 goals in 74 games. And then his first full season, 45 points in 51 games. So, enough of a track record to sign. It's only a 4-year contract. It's a second round pick. Played for the US in the World Juniors, so I'd say good pedigree and track record. So personally, he's the type of guy I would have tried to sign for 8 years, similar to the other two we just went over. Because he's young too. So, I mean, I would have tried to lock him up long term. even at this cap hit, like, I mean, 7.75 is a great cap hit. Like, that's a very, very good contract. If you could have gotten longer, you could have gotten even better value. Again, we don't know how he's actually going to perform moving forward, but the track record's there. So as it is, great contract, could be even better if it was longer term, assuming things continue. So, anyways, I think great contract. So good job there. Last one we'll touch on is Joe Pavelski, 1 year remaining, 5.5, was only a 1 year contract. Last year, 81 points, 27 goals in 82 games. Previous was 51 points, 25 goals in 56. 31 in 67, 64 with 38 goals and 75. Like, I mean, everybody who follows hockey would know his name and that he's really high end performer. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, that's an absolute no brainer. 5.5. That's like outstanding value. Problem is, he's 38. So, I mean, is this going to be the year that he regresses to like way lower than what he's done previous years? Like, I mean, I'd say it's unlikely. Maybe in like not this year, but the next year. Next year, I would be more cautious because you're getting towards 40. But yeah, so I mean, great contract. I would say it's unlikely that he doesn't perform up to standard. And so, I mean, the value you're getting out of 5.5 million is just outstanding. So, um, and you wouldn't really want to sign him for more than a year, 2 years, maybe, because he's still been consistently good even as he's gotten older. But, um, yeah, 1 year this way, there's essentially no risk. He's not going to be asking for a higher contract next year. So, you would be able to sign him at a similar price if you want to keep him. So, really smart contract, really outstanding value. I'm sure it will be for him. So, uh, very good job there. So that's it for forwards. He can't really be considered part of the core because of his age. So essentially, the core is between 3 to 5 years remaining. Because of the cap hit of their top two players there, Sergei and Ben. Or okay, so sorry. At least historically, their best two players. Those cap hits kind of limit what you can do with your team, which you can tell already because they're right up to the cap. Um, so it gets in the way of being able to produce a powerhouse, but with them too, assuming they perform close enough to standard, uh, like let's say they perform below good value as they have the past couple of years, you still have a competitive team. Like I have them to make the playoffs. So and they could conceivably win a cup with their roster. Um, they're not like I wouldn't say it's likely they win a cup, or sorry, compete for a cup. I'd say it's unlikely, but um, yeah, it's still a competitive roster. So, uh, no, not really any flexibility, but you have good a good team with what you have. Just if the top the well Sege and Ben, if they keep performing the same or start going uh, down, that's where you're really running into trouble with not getting good value. And those are salaries you won't be able to trade away unless you retain, and then in which case you still can't put together a good roster with retained cap hits. Um, so anyways, so if they get the performance they should get out of those players, uh, then it's fine to leave it as is. But yeah, if they don't, then that's where things are not very flexible, and you're not going to get the best output. So, anyways, moving to D, we have Heiskanen, 8.45. He has 7 years remaining on an 8-year contract. Last year, 36 points, 70 games, 27 and 55, 35 and 68, 33 and 82. Young guy, very well regarded defenseman. And yeah, just going back to their cup run, 26 points in 27 games in the playoffs. Like, that is unreal for a defenseman. So really high quality defenseman. Great pedigree, was a 3rd overall pick. So anyways, so he was signed in 2021, which would have been after 3 good years. So cap hit of 8.45, and so that would have been after the year after the Stanley Cup run. So yeah, and in which case they didn't make the playoffs. So is he the same kind of thing as Makar? No, I would say. So should he be getting paid as high as he is? I would say no. If his production was, 50 points, 60 points a year, I'd say, 8.45 is great. But more production. And I mean, again, we're not factoring in defensive play and other things that are relevant. So, so still, nonetheless, I wouldn't be paying that much for a defenseman with uh, that offensive production, which is still good, obviously, for a defenseman. But I mean, yeah. So I think he's the contract's a bit high there, because you could get better value in that money allocated to forward. So, yeah. And then Lindell is the only other defenseman I'll touch on here. 5.8, 3 years remaining of a 6-year contract. Last year, 25 points, 76 games, 16 in 56, 23 and 69, 32 and 82. So slightly less performance than Heiskanen, but still a high-end defenseman, 20 some odd points, high 20s per year. So good productivity from a defenseman. And then this is a great example of where the value I'd be spending or wanting to spend on a defenseman with that kind of performance. So 5.8 million is a good contract for a good top defenseman. Was signed in 2019, which would have been after one so-so year and a good year. So yeah, so I mean, probably because the first year wasn't the best of years, they were able to get him at less. But yeah, the value is great now, I'd say, at least. And I mean, so this is a good contract and would have still been fine at the time, because I believe, so he was a third round pick, played in World Junior and performed well there, and otherwise had good stats elsewhere. So I mean, um, yeah, it would have been good even if you weren't sure if um, yeah, if you weren't sure because he wouldn't have had a couple years previous in the NHL of experience. So great contract there. So that's the kind of contract I'd like for your better defenseman. Then finally, goalie Odinger, I think is how it's pronounced. And that's 4 million, 3 years remaining of a 3-year contract. Last year 914 save percentage, previous year 911. Only really played a starter's amount of games this past year, but the previous year was 29 games. So I mean, um, yeah, so enough of a track record where and I mean, he played very well in the playoffs. 954 save percentage in 7 games this past playoffs. Um, so great stats, good track record. Was a first round pick, so good pedigree. So yeah, so I mean, to sign him there at that price with that track record, I mean, that's an outstanding contract. 4 million. You would assume that you're going to get really good value. So similar kind of in concept to like a Hellebuck contract. Now, personally, because he's only 23. I would have gone for, I mean, maybe it's risky, but I would have tried to do something like an 8-year contract for a guy like that. So um, now with goalies, it's kind of tough because they come in and out all the time. Like I've previously done a lot of analysis on um, sort of contrasting the high end goalies with the middle of the pack. And basically, there's like a handful, like 5 goalies that produce consistently at a high level. And then the rest are kind of hit and miss. So is he going to be one of those top 5? Like I would say it seems unlikely just in statistically the number of goalies that are going to be that good. But that's where sometimes you got to take a bit of a gamble. So I mean, if you could have gotten him 8 years at 4 million, well, geez, if he turns out being a home run, then you're getting crazy good value. So, anyways, so great contract, lots of flexibility. Would have probably done longer term myself, but you know, not a big deal either way. So, yeah. So taking a look at everything combined here, I'd say mostly good contracts. All were made correctly at the time of that they were made. Uh, just not getting the best value with a couple of your important pieces on forward. So I mean, uh, some slight overpays, I would say. So, uh, but yeah, I mean, nobody bad is locked up long term. So, or assuming reasonable performance. So I'd say very well managed. What would I say here? Just the problem is that there's still not enough cap space to round out the roster. So given the performance that some people have been putting forward, but it's tough because you don't know that these guys are going to dip in their performance. So honestly, cap management is probably a B plus. I'd say you can't really knock them for much. Nah, I mean, you know what? Even honestly, I'd give them an A because there's nothing you could have done differently, really. So yeah, I'd give Dallas an A for their cap management. Really good job. Just unfortunate that people have dipped in their performance. So yeah. Um, all right. So next up is Nashville Predators. So Nashville is spending 80.873 million, 1.626 million in cap space. Let's have a look here. So Forsberg, 8.5 million, 8 years remaining of an 8-year contract. Last year, 84 points, 42 goals in 69 games. Very good. 32 points in 39 games, 48, 21 goals in 63, 50, 28 goals in 64 games. So great track record. Previous years were slightly better, but last year was kind of back on track with his best years. So, well, it was his best year. So outstanding player, obviously, great pedigree, as we all know. And it was signed this past summer. So cap hit of 8.5, locking up until he's 36. Had a couple years that were less than normal, but still ballpark point per game. So honestly, 8.5 is a great contract. I'd say that's a very good contract there. Yeah, wouldn't do anything differently. You'd want to lock him up. Should still be producing about the same at the end of the contract, or at least, reasonably close, where 8.5 is a good value. So I'd say that's a great contract there. Matt Duchene, 4 years remaining, 8 million per, was a 7-year contract. Last year, 86 points, 43 goals in 78 games, 13 points in 34 games, 42 in 66, and then 70 in 73 with 31 goals. So a bit up and down. If you followed him at all, he's had kind of up and down years where he produces really well and then not as good. So, but still, obviously not a bad player. I mean, it doesn't play poorly, just really up and down in his performance. Comparing his lower years to his best years. So, anyways, was signed in 2019, which would have been after 2 years in a row of really good performance after a bad year to his standards. And so a cap hit of 8 million because he's up and down. I mean, it's tough. So like last year, I mean, 8 million for 43 goals and 86 points is just crazy. That's outstanding value. But because he's kind of up and down, to sit around 8 million is a smart contract. So I don't dislike it. I think it's great value. And on his lesser years, 8 million is not really a bad contract, even at those lesser years. So, yeah, I'd say great contract, great one to have on the books, and it expires when he's 35. So, great job there. Ryan Johansson, 3 years remaining, 8 million per. Last year, 63 points, 26 goals in 79 games, 22 points in 48, 36 in 68, 64 and 80. So a similar story with him, kind of up and down. Has had some really good years, then some decent years, and so yeah. So similar story. Was signed in 2017, which would have been after a couple dips in his performance. Or wait, sorry. Give me a second here. Because it's a combined. So that is 60 points in 80 games. So that's actually not a dip. Sorry, because it's spread over 2 teams. My bad. So it would have been after 2 good years. So at 8 million would have made sense, and his track record would have been worth that. And the last year was great value with 26 goals. Like, that's very good. So, yeah. So even though kind of up and down, you'd still be fine with that because it expires when he's 32. Yeah, great contract. So I'd say good value there. Granlund next. 5 million per, 3 years remaining on a 4-year contract. 64 points in 80 games, 27 and 51, 30 and 63. Years prior, he was producing better, more goals. So he's kind of dipped. He was signed 2021, which would have been after those kind of mediocre years for compared to his best years. So good timing to sign a contract because then or you have the ability to negotiate a lower rate. So that's why 5 million per 4 years, and it's really smart to get it at 4 years because let's say he never gets back up to form. 5 million is not that expensive, and you have 4 years that you only have 4 years that you have to ride out until you can kind of replace that cap hit. So, and I mean, he has a good enough track record where like 4 years is definitely a reasonable time frame. So, I'd say really good contract. Maybe not getting the best of value like last year, yes, but previous years, no. But yeah, it's a good contract, I'd say. That's it for forwards. On D, Roman Yossi, 9.059 per. 6 years remaining on an 8-year contract. I was just about to say I already dislike spending that much on a defenseman, but I didn't ever see his stats from last year. So funny enough, 96 points, 23 goals in 80 games. So I stand corrected. My mistake to make a snap judgment. Now, all his previous years, what I was going to say would apply, but last year was pretty crazy. So at least compared to last year, his value is good. Now, he was signed in 2019. So now my argument does stand. So consistently around 50 points per season. People will disagree with me, obviously, on my assessment of spending on a defenseman. But unless you're Cale Makar putting up some 20 some odd goals like Yossi did last year, unless you're doing that every year, I wouldn't be spending 9 million on a defenseman. So considering his performance previously, as much as he's one of the top, 5, 10 defensemen in the league, uh, even considering that, I still wouldn't spend that money. I'd rather trade and get somebody else with similar performance at a lower cap hit, at least in terms of production. Again, not considering defensive play, but still, there's ways to manage a roster. Again, I'm not a GM, so it's easy for me to say, but I think there's ways to put together a roster that has good defensive play, good offensive production, where you're not spending this kind of money on a defenseman. So, anyways, I don't like it. Other people will. To sign him for 8 years is a no-brainer. He's a stud defenseman. Had a great track record when he was signed. I just would never spend that much on a defenseman. Um, so to normal people, probably a good contract. To me, I don't like it. For the dollar figure, the 8 years is great. Dollar figure is far too much for me, unless he's producing the same as last year every year. So, anyways, then we have Ryan McDonough. He's 6.75, 4 years remaining, 7-year contract. Last year, 26 points, 71 games, 12 points, 50 games, 12 points, 50 games, 46 and 82. So, actually, one sec here. So it was signed in 2018, would have been after his best years, essentially. And I know he's great defensively too. So, so he's a stud of a defenseman. 6.75 with his performance is kind of right on track. So, I mean, his performance dipped. So that's where, if he was performing at his previous levels, I would say 6.75 is very good value. So if he was like in the 30-point range, and with his play, I'd say great value. But he's dipped. Last year was fine. In Tampa, it's kind of on track. It expires when he is 37, which is slightly on the old side by maybe 1 year. But nonetheless, timing's more or less perfect. Contracts more or less perfect given his track record at the time. I mean, I'd want to shed maybe 250,000 or a little bit more than that, ballpark around the just above 6 million range, but I mean, it's close enough. So I'd say great contract there. Matthias Ekholm, 6.25, 4 years remaining, 4-year contract. Last year, 31 points, 76 games, 23 in 48, 33 in 68, 44 in 80. So looks around like a 30 some odd point defenseman. Was signed 2021 after consistent play. Puts him at 36 when it expires. So 6.25, that track record. See, again, this is perfect. So I would have traded, as crazy as it might sound, Roman Josi for a guy similar to this to leave me that 3 million in cap space to, maybe re-sign a high-end forward to fill that out with forward production, because a forward produces that same amount of points, and fills out your roster and you could have similar performance on defense at a lower cap hit, a forward that produces similar. So you're basically doubling your performance with that caps hit. It just doesn't make sense for me why they spend that much on those high end players. I mean, maybe their defensive play is so outstanding in like their possession stats or whatever if you get into the very fine details, but I would be very surprised if splitting that spending would not produce a better output. But I mean, again, I'm not a GM. So, anyways, so great contract, perfect, good value. I'd say great. Yeah, I mean, you can't have all those players making 6 million. You'd want to have it probably slightly less, like the high 5 millions. But I mean, whatever, it's close enough. So yeah, so good contract there. That's it for D. I forget if I said on the forwards there. No, I don't think I did about their core. So, anyways, going back to forwards, the core is kind of uh, what was it left for Forsberg? I think he still had the 8 years, right? Yeah. So between a core between 2 and 8 years, mostly between 2 and 4. So plenty of flexibility. They're all young. So great spot up front. On D, the core is 4 to Yossi was 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. So 4 to 6 years on D. Like you're gonna have a competitive team for a long time there. So in both regards, like great flexibility in given what you have there. And then finally in net, 5 million, 3 years remaining for UC Saros. And it was a 4-year contract. And I mean, he's got such stellar stats. And the problem is there's so many players in the league that you can't know all their numbers off the bat. So like you just saw with me and Yossi, I didn't know his stats were that high last year, but when I was doing some analysis on goalies and stuff, Saros was just so surprising to me. His stats are so outstanding. So last year, and it seems because he keeps getting more games now that Rene's gone and keeps putting up stellar performance. So last year, 67 games, 918, like wow, 36 games, 927, 40 games, 914, 915, 925, 923. Like, I mean, year after year, outstanding performance. Very, very impressive. And puts up similar numbers in the playoffs too, like 921, 952, 952. And I mean, a couple dips there, but sometimes your playoff stats are not going to look as good because, if you lose a round, your stats can't look that great necessarily. So, anyways, and he was signed 2021, which would have been never after full seasons, more as a 1A, 1B kind of goalie. So to sign for 4 years with that track record at 5 million is maybe, I mean, what's his pedigree here? He played World Juniors, good 1 year, not great the next year. Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, good enough pedigree where it's not a big gamble. And on 4 years, it's definitely not a gamble. It just would suck if he didn't perform it to expectations. But I mean, obviously, a steal at this point, great value, outstanding goalie, uh, great contract. So, um, yeah, and to be honest, I wouldn't have really done anything differently because not enough playing time. So maybe a lesser dollar figure for 4 years if you're going to go for 4 years. 5 million for 3 is probably more my taste, but anyways, still not bad. So altogether, excuse me, a lot of great contracts. I mean, some of those players are up and down, but the ups and downs all combined between all the players. I mean, there's not really much risk in it. So just the Yossi contract, I don't like that much. Um, so just for argument's sake, just to drive home my point that I keep making, Roman Yossi's making more than Philip Forsberg. Okay, so Roman Yossi's producing in his absolute peak 23 goals, 96 points in 80 games. Philip Forsberg at his absolute peak 42 goals, 84 points in 69 games. He's getting paid less. Yes, I know defensemen are important, but let's just say in some crazy world you filled your forwards with 40 goal scorers and had junky defensemen. Do you think the team would play well? I kind of have a feeling like yes. I mean, you still need defensemen to pass the puck out, retrieve the puck defensively and all that. Obviously, yes, I understand hockey well enough that it's important to have good defensemen. But, anyways, don't like the Yossi contract given those points. But, I mean, again, they're the same as Dallas. I would say even better managed because what was it, 9 million for the Ben and Sege? Yeah, they're in the high nines, whereas these guys are in the eights. Similar track records, pedigree, and all that. So I would say A plus. Like, I mean, there's not anything wrong with this, and it's better managed to fill out the roster. So yeah, A plus. Like, I mean, outstanding. Nashville's doing great. There's nothing you could do differently. So very impressive. And then we have St. Louis, which I already know I really like them. Now I wonder if in the end if I'm going to have the same evaluation as the rest of them, because the other ones I didn't. I mean, I don't look super closely at these things all the time. Most of my analysis is kind of aggregate stats of players to predict team performance. So, like the cap stuff, I look at and I'm interested in. Obviously, this is the kind of stuff that I'm most interested in. It's just in terms of usage for the kind of writing and stuff that I do, the sports betting that I do, and all that kind of stuff. It's not as like the cap stuff only is relevant in terms of me predicting if they'll be able to like sign free agents or to pick up somebody at the trade deadline and stuff. So, I mean, I don't look at it that much, but yeah. So it's surprising to see how good some of these teams have done when you go through the contracts and everything. So, anyways, St. Louis. Sorry, the main stats. So they're over the cap in spending 84.225. They're using their LTIR. I forget if it's anybody super long term. I don't think so. Anyways, So first player, Ryan O'Reilly, 7.5 million, 1 year left. Was a 7-year contract. Last year, 58 points, 21 goals in 78 games, 24 goals in 56, 61 in 71 games, 77 points, 28 goals in 82 games. So pretty consistent there. 20 some odd goals and a bunch of points, just under a point per game kind of thing. And I know very good defensively. I think he's one of the best in face-offs. So a really important, really good value, or sorry, really good player. And sorry, to consider the value, we should have a look here. So he was signed 2015 after one good year. Sorry, 2 good years. One especially good year, 28 goals, 64 points in 80 games. So previously kind of lesser, but still not bad stats. So after 2 years to sign him for 7.5 for his production, I would say maybe slightly high, but because in this case I do happen to know that he's got good usage all around, 7.5 is definitely reasonable. So yeah. And you know what? Even with his stats, so on his better years, you're getting, but it's just this was made before some of those years. So if you're getting 28 goals and about a point per game, like that's really good value. So even at the time, I'd say it was a good contract. So yeah, good contract, only 1 year. They're gonna want to re-sign him. He's 31, so it would be very smart to sign him. You know, something like 4 to 5 years, preferably at a similar cap hit if you're smart. Uh, but you know, we'll see. Next, Tarasenko, 7.5, 1 year remaining, was 8 years. Last year, 82 points, 34 goals in 75 games, 14 points in 24 games, 10 points in 10 games. It's where he had some injury problems there. 68 points, 33 goals in 76 games, 66 points, 33 goals in 80 games. Like he's one of those high-end scorer guys that really important if you can get one of them on your roster. So excuse me. This was signed 2015 after one very good year, one pretty good year, and then a relatively short rookie season. So was a first round pick, 16th overall, great pedigree. To sign at 7.5 per for 8 years. So he's one of those guys again, lock up long term when they're young after a couple of years of good performance. So I mean, great contract. That's a great job. Now, I mean, you contrast it with stuff like a couple of the ones in Winnipeg. They were slightly less cap hit, similar performance. So like with what's his name? Jeez, their winger. Gapping on my favorite team star player. Kyle Connor. I knew Kyle was in there. I just couldn't remember this. But anyways, so yeah, I mean, you're getting better value on him versus Tarasenko, but I mean, it's close enough again. So smart job locking up a guy, one of your star young guys long term. So great contract there. Braden Shen, 6.5 per. He has 6 years remaining on an 8-year contract. Last year, 58 points, 24 goals, 62 games, 63 points, 56 games, 58 points, 25 goals in 71 games, 54 points in 72. So hovers around 25 goals a year and under a point per game. Was signed in 2019, which would have been after, three straight years of 25 goals and not shy or just a bit shy of a point per game. I mean, a little bit shy of a point per game, but anyways, like 25 goals a year, and then a so-so year with 54 points in 72 games. So yeah, 6.5. I mean, great job again. It expires when he is 37, so that's getting on the older age range of age. So yeah, I mean, maybe slightly less, maybe not an 8-year, maybe a 7-year, 6-year instead, but 6.5 is great. So really good contract there, I'd say. Buchnevich, 5.8, 3 years remaining of a 4-year contract. Last year, wow. See, I come across these players with the stats, and I just, because there's just so many, it's hard to keep track. So 76 points, 30 goals in 73 games. Like, wow. 48 points, 20 goals in 54, 46 points in 68, 38 points in 64. So looks like he's trending upwards. 20 goals at least you could expect a year. It looks like last year in the playoffs, 11 points in 12 games, most of those assists, but still. Yeah, so really good stats there. Was signed in 2021 after some of those, kind of decent years, average years, where last year was kind of a noticeable increase. So that's how you get him at that price, which is smart. Okay, so that's why he's slightly older, because he played in the KHL for a while. So, anyways, that's interesting. So yeah, I mean, 5.8 is a great contract. He's going to be in his prime now, so conceivably he could be producing the same as last year moving forward. So, uh, I'd say great contract, 5.8. You're probably going to get really good value out of that. I don't know if I like the term. So, I mean, maybe you could have locked him up for longer because of the track record. Maybe you wouldn't want to go for more than 5, but I would say 5 feels better than 4. Anyways, still close enough. So good contract there. And then so forwards, you know what? Actually, I should, because the extensions there, I nearly missed them. So Jordan Kyrou, 8.125 per. The extension is for 8 years. This is the last year of a 2.8 million 2-year contract. So last year, 75 points, 27 goals in 74 games, 35 points in 55, and then short kind of in and out first and second years. So one decent year and then one good year last year. And his extension was signed just prior to this year. So after one really good year. So what's his so he's a second round pick, played World Juniors and played well in the World Juniors. So I mean, great pedigree. So it's just one decent year and one great year to lock up for 8.125. Yeah, I guess it's right on par with what I would want to do. So I mean, I don't know why I was hesitating, but yeah, it's just slightly less track record, and the fact that he was in and out for the first 2 years kind of makes me hesitant because you'd want to kind of get in there and secure a spot. It was a point per game in the AHL, so I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't hesitate to be all for it because yeah, it's a smart contract, 8 million, great. So like these kind of guys might be producing the same as like a Marner and not quite like a Matthews, but like they're close enough and you're getting similar performance and you're paying 2 to 4 million less. Like, I mean, that's what I would want to do. Just because that extra, you know, what, 4 to 6 million between two players or whatever, that's a player that can get you 30 goals potentially. Like, it's to fill out a roster with another great player for maybe a decrease in like 10 goals per player. You're increasing cumulatively 10 goals. So I don't know. And you're spreading out your points between players so that it's harder to play against your team, I think. I don't know. Anyways, I just don't get why teams spend so much on those high guys, and I would just trade them. As crazy as it sounds, with the exception of maybe Matthews is in that McDavid kind of range, but I wouldn't put him quite there. Anyways, okay, and then Robert Thomas, 8.125 again, 8 years. Last year, 77 points, 20 goals in 72 games, 12 points, 33 games, 42 in 66, 33 in 70. So him not as good of a track record, same sort of pedigree, first round pick, 20th overall. So I mean, this one I would hesitate more than Kairu, but still it's kind of the same range. So same sort of thing. Definitely a good contract, and it was signed right before this year, I believe. So in the off season. So after last year, which was a great year. So yeah, great contract. Again, slightly hesitant because of track records, but whatever, close enough. So the kind of young players you want to lock up. So yeah, so they're between their core is 1 year, some of the players up to 8 years. So they have some guys, obviously, like I mentioned, Tarasenko and O'Reilly, that need to be signed. So all things considered, not flexible, but for good reason, basically. Defense, Justin Falk, 6.5, 5 years remaining. 47 points, 76 games, 25 in 56, 16 in 69, 35 in 82. So 30 some odd point producer, peaks up to high 40s. So kind of bit of a range, bit of up and down, it looks like, with him. Was signed in 2019 after very consistent years back to back to back. So at 6.5, great contract. This is the kind of stuff I would like to do for, I mean, maybe slightly less, towards 6 million, and then try to have like 3 or 4 defensemen at about that price. I mean, good contract, good job there. Torrey Krug, same dollar figure, same years remaining, 6.5, 5 years. Was a 7-year contract. 43 points, 64 games, 32 and 51, 49 61, 53 and 64. So, and I mean, he's got, like, those are great stats. That's pretty high end for defenseman. And the 1 year with Boston, I remember in the playoffs, 18 points, 24 games, was really good. So anyways, great defenseman, was signed 2020. That was after all his good years. Geez, only at 6.5, like, outstanding value. Expires when he's 30. What is it? So 36. So perfectly fine. And I forget, I didn't see here for Falk when it expires. Yeah, 35. Sorry. Yeah, 35. So great contract, both of them. Really, really good. I mean, you're getting outstanding value on Krug with his production. It's, I mean, very, very good. Parayko, 6.5, 8 years remaining. So was just signed in 2021. Last year, 35 points, 80 games, 12 points, 32 games, 28 and 64, 28 in 80. So, what was it? I said 21. So after a bit of a dip of a year, but he missed time, I guess, with injury, and that was a shortened year anyways, but maybe a 30-point defenseman, 6.5, 8 years, 3rd-round pick. Not the best pedigree in terms of like his younger years, but played college hockey and played very well as a defenseman. So enough of a track record there. Well, obviously before, like when the contract was made, so I don't even know why I'm going that far back. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is if 8 years is good. So, I mean, to be honest, why not? I mean, it would be kind of dumb not to. I stand corrected. It expires when he's 37. So, yeah. So I would have probably done 6 years, 7 at the most, but 6 years is probably the most I would want to do. So slightly long. So I think that could come back to bite them, but still nonetheless close enough. So good contract. And then last defenseman we'll look at, Nick Leddy, 4 million, 4 years remaining. Is a 4-year contract. Last year, 24 points in 75 games, 31 and 56, 21 and 60, 26 and 82. Has produced up to 40 some odd points as a defenseman. Contract expires when he's 35. $4 million per, like that's inexpensive. That's very good value. Geez. So just think of that. Like between 4 defensemen, 6.5 for 3 of them, one of them at 4 million. You got your 2 main defensive lines that are super solid and great production, inexpensive, lots of cap space to be able to fill it out with really good forwards, like very well managed. And then so their core is 5 to 8 years. Like, so you've got young guys straight through their prime, like perfect. Couldn't be better. Like, I mean, great job again. Goalie Binnington, 5 years, 6 million per, was a 6-year contract. Last year, 901, 910, 912, 927 was signed after, I believe, that playoff run. Signed 2021. No, so actually a couple years after. Surprised. So showed through those playoffs and then a full year after that with good stats. And then most of the next season. So with that track record, I mean, $6 million to lock up your goalie. That's pretty cheap for what you're hoping is your starter. He hasn't been quite as good. So last year in the season wasn't quite as good. During the playoffs was outstanding. So I mean, I don't see him regressing. Just goalies kind of have up and down years. As long as he plays good when it counts, which he has done for the most part, I'd say smart guy to lock up. Expires when he's 34. So, I mean, great. Another one. So, essentially, St. Louis, another one. A plus, I would say, for St. Louis. Fantastic. Like, great team, competitive every year, will continue to be competitive. The trouble right now is to be able to fit in O'Reilly and Tarasenko after they just signed those big contracts. So just the timing of the contracts, like stared, or however you want to call it, where they kind of overlap and you're not getting stuck with big ones at the same time. So I don't know if they'll be able to afford all those guys at the same time at the price they're going to ask. So it's going to be tough. And Tarasenko previously seemed like he wanted out. So I don't know if they're going to trade him. But if they can't sign either one or either of them, then they need to trade them and they need to get good assets because they'll be fine without them. I mean, obviously not perfectly fine because they're missing the production. But as long as you can get something to fill it in, to maintain that depth, then they're going to be in great shape. So extremely well managed, A plus, very good job. And then last one, Colorado. So they are, $81.119 million, 1.38 in cap space. I forget one thing. Sorry, just to go back. Did I comment on the... I don't think I said Doug Armstrong is the GM in St. Louis. I don't think I mentioned that. I think I said Jim Nill in Dallas. But anyways, those are the GMs there. So that both got good grades. So anyways, oh, and am I missing one? Nashville. Yeah, I didn't say on Nashville either, I don't think. So I think I said in Dallas, but not Nashville. So just one sec. David Poyle, yeah. Sorry. So just wanted to give them credit too. So don't want to forget about their names. Okay, so Avalanche is Chris McFarland. And we start with Mikko Rantanen, 9.25. I'm already looking forward to complaining about McKinnon. Maybe I shouldn't be. Oh, I gotta slow my roll and not get ahead of myself. But anyways, so Rantanen, 92 points, 36 goals, 75 games. Fantastic. 66, 30 goals, 52 games. 41 points, 42 games, 87 points, 31 goals, 74 games. Like consistently above 30 goals a year, over a point per game. Super outstanding stats. It is a 6-year contract, 3 years remaining. Was signed in 2019. After rookie year was so-so, and then back-to-back really good years of 29 and 30 goals respectively. So, and over a point per game. So lock him up long term. I would have done 8 years if you could have with him. Now 9.25. See, because other guys we've mentioned before are getting similar production at like, 8 something million. So yeah, he's great. Yeah, he deserves that money, but you think you could get them for less. So anyways, great contract. I complain too much. So, but I mean, whatever. Good contract. Maybe I shouldn't complain. Until this one, let's see if McKinnon can make me complain here. Last year on a 6.3 million contract into 12.6 million for it will be for 8 years. So last year, okay, now yeah, so I don't feel bad about my statements here. So 88 points, 32 goals, 65 games. 65 points, 20 goals, 48 games. 93 points, 35 goals, 69 games. 99 points, 41 goals, 82 games. So you know what? It's like the more I think about it, I think the only player I would spend up to like the maximum you could possibly spend on salary would be McDavid. I don't think there's another player I would do it with. I mean, Draisaitl's. I would put. I don't know if it's because of McDavid. His stats are so high. It's hard to say. So I'm not as confident. But McDavid, like it's guaranteed I'd spend as much as he wants. Preferably he'd want less. But I think he's the only one I'd spend that 12 whatever million. So people might disagree with me here and think McKinnon's worth, like, obviously he's worth that, but I don't think I would pay it. I would be that crazy guy that would trade McKinnon. Anyways, so fine contract to normal people, not to me, as crazy as I might sound. Oh God, I gotta pull it up. Where is he here? McDavid, 12.5, 44 goals, 123 points. Like, Edmonton's paying less for McDavid than Colorado is for and going backwards in their history of their performance, McDavid is consistently better. So I don't know, man. I know as the salary cap is expected to go up, that it's going to be, when the time the contracts were made, McDavid's contract is probably equivalent value to, so essentially they're paying less for McKinnon's contract than McDavid's when you think about inflation on player contracts. But still, I don't know if I would do it. I couldn't. And everybody, if I was GM of Colorado and I traded away McKinnon because I wouldn't sign his $12.6 million contract, people would hate me. I don't know if I'd have a job. I'd have to go to like Arizona to actually be able to get away with my crazy stuff. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Maybe it's tough because owners would pressure you into it. And I mean, I don't know, man. It's so tough. Unless I had the job, it's hard to say what I would actually do. But I would be against those contracts. It's just funny to think about. So anyways, Nichushkin, 6.125, 8 years remaining. So it's his first year of that contract. Last year, 52 points, 25 goals, 62 games, 21 in 55 games, 27 in 65, 10 in 57. Had one good year. Played great in the playoffs, though. I mean, that's one thing to remember. 15 points in 20 games, but a lot of important goals. I remember watching that. Was just signed after one good year for 8 years, 6.125. I wouldn't do it. He's been in the league 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, including last year, and one good year at 6.125. No way I would sign him at that. I'd probably go for $4 million. So I don't like that contract, and I would especially not do it for 8 years, given his track record. There's no chance. So even though he was a first round pick, wouldn't do it. So don't like that contract. As much as Lekkonen's a great player, and I should touch on his contract, it's below my threshold of $5 million, so I won't touch on it. Landeskog, before I move on. $7 million per 7 years remaining. Last year, 59 points, 30 goals, 51 games, 52, 20 goals, 54 games, 44, 20 goals, 54 games, 75 points, 34 goals, 73 games. And just to make the comment, he's point per game in the playoffs. So him, not that I followed him super closely, but I know he's a clutch player. Went over to Canada when he was young, was consistently uh, a leader, played great in playoffs all through juniors. So I mean, I really like him. I really like Landeskog. He's like a really, really important core player in my opinion. Signed in 2021. So that would have been after all those great years at only 7 million. You could almost have two Landeskogs instead of McKinnon. Like, just think about that. Just shy of two Landeskogs for one McKinnon. And it's not like they didn't know, because he had many good years before they signed that contract. 34 goals, 25 goals, 20 goals, 20 goals, 20 goals, 23 goals, 26 goals. I mean, not quite McKinnon stats, but you could have two of them. So ballpark's 25 goals times 2 is 50 goals. Whereas with McKinnon, you're getting 30 goals and at the absolute peak 40 goals. So just think about that. Like, so in my opinion, I have a strong feeling that Landeskog as a leader is taking less because he wants to win Stanley Cups. I would want more of those players, less of the guys that sign at 12.5 million. So there you go. And I don't know how you can argue against that. Like, I know all fans right away are like, yeah, they're worth that much. And I agree. Yes, to the market, they're worth that much, but would never pay it as much as I could avoid it. So, anyways, core is locked up essentially 3 to 8 years. Good core, perfectly fine to not be flexible with those players. So, yeah, I just don't like the contracts. Or, I mean, McKinnon, Rantanen's not as bad, but still not what I would like. And then Landeskog is just fantastic. Okay, so Cale Makar. So probably the one guy I would spend all the money on a defenseman for. 9 million, 6-year contract, 5 years remaining. Last year, 28 goals, 86 points in 77 games, 44 points, 44 games, 50 points, 57 games, 29 points in 20 games last. He's a point per game. He's over a point per game in the playoffs. Jeez, I didn't know that. Like, I knew he had good years, but I didn't know he was that consistently good in the playoffs. That's clutch. Wow, that's impressive. I knew he was high performing in the regular season. Didn't know that high, and I knew last year in the playoffs, but I didn't know previous years in the playoffs. So that tells you really good track record, like absolute stud. So 9 million on a defenseman would only do for Cale Makar, and it was signed in 2021. So that was after 2 good years with 2 good playoffs. Yeah, at 9 million though. Ugh, at the time, would I have done 9 million? After last year, yes. After the previous years, man, that's still tough to say. He deserves it, and he would have deserved it at the time, maybe. Ooh. See, that's so tough. Maybe I wouldn't have done 9 million. Maybe it would have been 8. But in any case, still not far off. You're not overpaying. He's super young, and he stepped right into the league as a stud player. So, yeah. So, fantastic. Best defenseman probably in the league. So, there you go. Eric Johnson, 1 year remaining, 6 million of a 7-year contract. 25 points, 77 games, 16 points, 59, 25 in 80 games, 25 in 62. So around 25 points a year. Was signed in 2015. That's a while ago. After essentially 2 good years, but one was a shortened year. What the first of the 2 was his best year. So 6 million per, expires when he's 34. Great contract. Good job. 6 million. So great contract. Sam Girard, 5 million, 5 years remaining. Was 7 years. Last year, 28 points, 67 games, 32 in 48, 34 in 70, 27 in 82. Signed in 2019 after 2 good years. At 5 million, he was signed. So yeah, great contract. Expired at a great time. Good job. Another great contract. And Josh Manson, 4.5, 4 years. Just signed this past off season. 16 points in 67 games, 7 in 23, 9 in 50, 16 in 74. Only one good year, 37 and 80. The next year before that. Was just signed. 4.5? No way. Sorry, wouldn't do it. 3 million? So I don't like that contract. I mean, I don't know enough about his defensive play, but still 4.5 is too much. So yeah, I don't like that one. Still short enough term where you can get out of it, but and it expires when he's 35. So still fine, but I don't like it. Devin Taves, 4.1, 2 years remaining of a 4-year contract. Does he go with Devon Taves? I think it's Devon Taves. Anyways, 57 points in 66 games. Wow. 31 and 53, 28 and 68, 18 and 48. Was signed in 2020. Just before the year. When was that? Yeah, just before the year. So after one okay year in his rookie year and second year, pretty good. 10 points in 22 games with the Islanders. Yeah, so and I think his pedigree. No, it's not as great. So 4th round pick. College play is where he got his name. Not before that. So 4.1 would have been an absolute no-brainer for that price, but I would have tried to lock him up for long term. Maybe not quite the 8-year thing because of pedigree track record combination. Maybe would have done like 6 years at 4 or 5 million, whatever you could get him at. So I mean, obviously a steal of a deal, but I would have tried to get him longer term. So especially after the one playoffs he had with the Islanders, where he was, because I watched the Islanders a lot those playoffs and they were outstanding. So, anyways, and he was especially good. So that's where I would have done longer term than 4 years, but whatever. And it's paying off now. Like he's 57 points in 66 games. Like what a steal of a price. See, that's the thing is sometimes in the balance of all the contracts, you get some where you're overpaying, some where you're underpaying. But I mean, as long as you're overall managing it well, I mean, that's kind of the thing. But yeah. So defense between 1 to 5 years. So, but everybody that they have locked up, it should be locked up. So, anyways, so good there. Georgiev on in net there. They just got 3 years, 3.4 per. Last year, 898, 905, 910, 914. So it seems around like a 9-1 save percentage. And this is why I don't have them to win the Stanley Cup. They might get close, but I don't think they'll win. I think their Achilles heel is going to be goaltending. He hasn't played enough. His most is 34 games in a year. So even if the team's outstanding, I would be concerned to bet on them. So, anyways, yeah. So, I mean, fine contract. Excuse me. Oh. Fine contract. 3.4 for his experience, and yeah, to have him maybe split, but maybe be the starter. I mean, that's good value. So not a bad contract. I just would have a goalie that I could definitely rely on rather than him if you want to win the Stanley Cup back-to-back years, which the odds makers are saying that they're going to do, but no way. I don't think so. I would say it's extremely unlikely they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. But we'll see. And so that kind of covers their contracts. So flexibility where they need it, not flexible where they shouldn't be because they got guys locked up long term. I don't like some of the contracts. All right, sorry, I don't like one contract. Don't like the McKinnon one. Rantanen's slightly high for me, but close enough. Oh yeah, and Chushkin's also too high. So, all things considered, cap management I'd say is A minus, probably, maybe a B plus. See, it's because of what other people are going to say about the McKinnon contract. So I would say I'm going to say B plus for my preferences. So, so yeah, that's my opinion there. And this one, now that I look at the time, went a lot longer than I was expecting. But anyways, just some other stuff to talk about that I did. So that covers it. Hope you enjoyed the stream. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. Hit the notifications for the stream, especially in the next few days. It's going to be important because I don't know my if and when I'll be able to stream. The plan is to, but I don't know when. Because yeah, like I said, I'm traveling. So yeah, that pretty much covers it. So thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you maybe not tomorrow, but probably tomorrow.